All right. Thank you.
Let me first say that I have known Deborah for a number of years, but I never had the opportunity to meet her mother, so I suspect many of you here probably knew her better than I do. I learned about her from watching that and other information that Deborah sent me, so you may be able to fill in blanks that I'm not going to be able to tell you about, but that's okay. We'll give everybody a chance to answer, to add in if they want to. Did you have, you were raising your hand or fixing your
No, I
glass?
put my glasses.
Okay. Well, as I said, I have never met Ellen, but I've known Deborah for several years, and I'm sorry that I never took the opportunity or had the opportunity to actually talk with her, because she sounded like a fascinating woman. In fact, I was just floored at the accomplishments of this woman, and you saw some of that there, but there's a lot more that Deborah had sent me about her. So it's just an amazing life that this woman lived. She was born, as you saw in that, in 1919 in, am I pronouncing this right, Nyack, Oklahoma? Okay. And they lived in a tent in the oil field where her father and grandfather worked. And this was, 1919 was not long before the start of the Dust Bowl era, so it was a kind of a, I suppose, a tough childhood. She rode in horse-drawn carriages, but because cars weren't so common yet, but she did learn to drive when she was 8 years old, drive a car. She drove her and her siblings, 6 siblings, correct, to school, but she wasn't allowed to cross the railroad tracks. So they'd drive up to the railroad tracks, park it, and then walk the rest of the way to the school. That's the best she was able to do at 8 years old. I think at 8 years old, I was barely able to, change the channels on the TV maybe, but so that's pretty impressive. Her years span some of the darkest parts of our history. The Dust Bowl, you heard about World War I, World War II, the Depression, the Dust Bowl, all those things, but also some of the most amazing times, the technological changes, the first rockets launched barely 50 years after the first airplane flight. So she was able to go from airplane and cars in their infancy to people going in space and eventually going to the moon. So that's a huge change of how life was on this planet, and particularly in this country, over her lifetime. She was able to, I lost my place here, witness the first satellites orbiting, the first men walking on the moon, all of those things that happened in the span of her lifetime. I don't have this memorized, sorry, so. Oh, yeah, and while she was alive, the telephones became common in houses, but then cell phones, that practically everybody on the planet has a cell phone these days. That's such a technological change from what her life started when she was a young child. I don't know, when did they first get a telephone? I never saw that in the...
She really just talked about the car.
Yeah, okay, well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. They had party lines.
Yeah, well, yeah, my mom did too, party lines. She told me about those.
Yeah.
Okay, she married Paul when she was 18 years old, and between them they had the 3 kids. Are you the oldest one, or?
No, I'm in the middle.
In the middle, okay. So we had Deborah, Paul Jr., and Nancy.
Uh-huh.
Those are her siblings, Paul Jr. and Nancy. And was that Paul that was launching the boat?
That was Nathan.
That was Nathan.
her
There's
grandson.
Nancy, yeah, her grandson, okay. The one that said she looked like Indiana Jones's grandmother. That's
Yeah.
Nathan, okay. I'll get to that story. It has to do with her in school. She did an archaeology dig, and her son was apparently interested in that, and so that's where that came up. But I'll get to that in a second. When she went to school, there was a time when Paul got ill, had a medical issue, and so she went back to school at a time when women simply didn't hardly ever go to college. They were expected to just stay home and take care of family and the home and everything. But as you saw in some of those things, this was a woman who was always breaking the glass ceiling, breaking through to do things. So she went to college, and in 1962, she graduated summa cum laude from Oklahoma City University with a degree in sociology and psychology and a master's of science she got in 1963. Subsequently, she went to University of Oklahoma, and as Deborah said, she was one of the very first women to ever enter the psychology department at the University of Oklahoma. She got a PhD in 1967. Her time in Norman while she was going to school included training in the psychology at the VA hospital in Oklahoma City and Central Palsy Center in Norman, as well as an internship in psychology through the guidance service in Norman. She was never one to doubt her abilities. If she decided she wanted to do something, she never was one to say, I don't know if I can do that. She did it. If she wanted it, she did it. That was one of the hallmarks of her life, is this, I'm going to do what I want to do, and if everybody tells me I can't, I'm going to try even harder to do that because they told me I can't do it. So that was sort of her personality, and a lot of that came through in the videos that we just saw there. During her undergraduate years, she took a class in archaeology, and she was on a dig with the professor, and she dug up some bones, and she was excited about it. Showed it to the professor, and he said, that's nothing, threw it in the trash. But she just didn't believe that that was nothing. So later, without him knowing, she retrieved those and took it to, I guess it was the Sam Noble Museum of Natural History in Norman. They looked at it and said, yes, they're very important, and they went on display at the museum there, even though the professor had said they're junk and threw them away. She was smart enough to recognize there was something more there, or maybe just bullheaded enough to recognize there was something there and retrieve them with him not knowing, and took them to the museum, and turned out to be actually a rather important find. Her grandson Nathan, is he becoming an archaeologist, or he was just interested in that? That wasn't clear.
He was in it and on a dig, and I was sitting in my room, they were meeting for lunch, and she came in and flopped a fedora on her head and said, do I look like Indiana Jones?
That's where I was just going to say, the Indiana Jones, looked like Indiana Jones' grandmother.
Yeah.
That was his comment. He wasn't sure he liked archaeology, so knowing that she had done some of that, he asked her about it, and apparently she convinced him that it was worthwhile staying in the field.
Well, he was asking her, what can I do with archaeology?
Besides dig in the ground and find bones that your professor won't like.
Yeah.
She joined the faculty of Oklahoma University Medical School as an assistant professor of psychology, and she became a supervisor of psychology interns for 13 years. Also during that time, she founded Timber Ridge Academy, which was a school for children with special education and or gifted children, something they didn't have a lot of. They was just, everything was aimed towards the sort of the middle of it. And she started a school that catered to those kids that needed different types of education. That's something that hardly happened anywhere around. And she started that, and was director of that for, I believe it was 20 years, if I recall. She was a reviewer for American Psychological Association's Civilian Health and Medical Program of Uniformed Services, consultant to Oklahoma City Public Schools, and a leader of group therapy sessions at Ashbury Methodist and Westminster Presbyterian churches. She's also a past member of the Oklahoma State Board of Examiners of Psychologists and a past president of the Oklahoma Psychological Association, whose organization executive committee named Dr. Oakes as a pioneer psychologist of Oklahoma in Oklahoma of 1998. These are all things that women weren't supposed to be doing at the time. And she just said, I want to do it. I don't know I can't if needed, so I'm going to do it. So that was sort of the hallmark of her life, is that saying, if I find something I think there's a need for, I'm going to do what I can to fulfill that need. Most of her accomplishments, as I said, most of her accomplishments occurred during the time when women were expected to stay home and raise a family. And even though Dr. Oakes had a job, her husband had to sign for her to get a credit card. At that time, you couldn't get a credit card, you couldn't buy a house in your name. There's a lot of things you couldn't do as a woman because it was a man's world. And she said, I'm going to do what I need to do. So she just bullheadedly went through all those things. Outside of her professional work, she taught swimming lessons at the YWCA. I remember when I took swimming lessons at the YMCA when I was 8 or 9, went through from minnow to dolphin to shark. I think it was the other way around, shark to dolphin, the stages of swimming that you pass, the stages you pass to get to be able to do more and more things. And I can just imagine how many young women at the time learned how to fight through the obstacles in their lives through just the swimming classes that she taught them, ways to approach everything they needed to do in their life. Along with her husband and son, Paul, she participated in the Mummers Community Theater. Some of her stage credits there included Dark of the Moon, Zorba the Greek, and Death of a Salesman. And as you saw, by the way, the paintings out there on the desk, some of hers, I'll get to that in a second, but she did a lot of things that just had nothing to do with her career, but because she was interested, she liked that and wanted to do it. During her internship in the psychology department, she became curious about the atomic bomb and the thoughts of its main developer, J. Robert Oppenheimer, one of America's premier physicists of the day. She contacted him wanting to hear his side of the story. This, of course, was years after the fact of its use in World War II. He told her he would only talk about it just this one time. He said, among other things he shared with her, was that he hoped it wouldn't explode. If you saw the movie Oppenheimer, then you'll probably remember that. And he said, in fact, he wasn't even sure that it would, because it was so complicated and so large that he wasn't sure it would explode. But as we all know, it did. She became friends with Alvin Ailey, is that how you pronounce it? What? Ailey, okay, who, although a member of a New York dance troupe, made his home here in Oklahoma, and this is one of the many things that fueled her love and interest and support of the arts. Like I said, she did the Mummers Theater. She, of course, has the artwork out there that she did. In 1973, she visited Galapagos Islands. While there, she snapped a photo that caught a pelican as it flew by one of the huge standing boulders. The photo won first prize in an art show in Leadership Square in Oklahoma City. Upon her return, she submitted it to that. After sabbatical in Germany, Dr. Oaks returned home and retired, but she didn't quit her many activities, of course. At age 102, she worked with the screenwriter to write a memoir. You heard the details of that in the video there. She donated the book along with memorabilia, some of which is over 100 years old, to the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Library, and I assume that's all still there. Her book is Shake, Rattle, and Roll, and is still available as an ebook, and she talked a little bit about that in the video, of course. In her later years, she painted over 77 paintings, and she was thrilled when she actually sold 4 paintings and 4 prints, and you saw some examples out there, which I was very impressed with, by the way. She's still going strong right up to the end. At 105 years old, she learned to gamble at casino night. And it seemed like every time she threw the dice, somebody won. Dr. Oaks just enjoyed the thrill of the game. Winning was not the important part of it. It was just, this is fun. At 105, can you imagine doing that at the casino? She is survived by her sister Jane. That's the one that's in Alabama, could not come, right?
Right.
Jane Finley and her husband Earl. They live in Alabama. Her children, Deborah, Paul, and Nancy. 5 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. Now, as I said, many of you probably knew her better than I did, because I never met her in person, just some of the stories that Deborah told and some of the information she sent me. So I would like to invite anybody who would like to add anything or give an anecdote about what they did or know of her. That would be good. This would be a good time to come out, or I can bring the microphone to you to talk a little bit about those things. Anybody like to do that?
I'll break the ice.
Okay.
Break the ice. Thank you, Wayne. You did really good for never having met her.
That's right.
But she was amazing. She was always doing surprising things like that photo she took at the Pelican and submitted it to the photography contest and won. She bought a Jimi Hendrix album before he was famous, and everybody's like, "You like that music?" And then he got famous, and we were like, "Oh, she knows what she's doing." She was always doing stuff like that. And I thought I'd tell you all about the last 3 days of her life, because it really is magical. Yeah, the girls are nodding. I had a tapestry by her bed that had gold light coming through the woods. And so this one particular night, I was laying in bed with her, and she kept staring at that golden light. And then I knew something was going on. And then she sat up 3 times pointing at the ceiling, and she was really excited. And I'd heard of that before, and that means family is there. And then she yelled, "Mike, Mike!" And that was a husband, who had crossed over. And I said, "Wow, Mom, it sounds like you got a lot of people excited to see you." And she said, "Yeah, I probably shouldn't tell you." And she said that because she knew I was bringing her home. And so that was an exciting night. And then the next day, she never did open her eyes, but she always kind of had a smile on her face. And I felt like she was somewhere, not really here. And then, and I talked to her and hugged her, and she responded. Then the next day, she didn't even respond to me at all. And I have a girlfriend that was in hospice for 10 years, and she said, don't worry about staying there all the time because they really don't like you there when they go. So I did go home that evening, and Betty was there with me most that day, and that was really wonderful. We talked about how we loved her and how great she was. A lot of people came by the room to check on her, and it was a real good atmosphere. And so I went home that night because I was really tired, and the last guest left about 10:20, and the girl that was staying with Mom that night walked them out, make sure they could get out. And when she walked back in at 10:25, Mom was gone. And she looked like she was just asleep, had a smile on her face. And one of the aides said, did you rearrange her or do anything, do something with her? And I said, no. And she said, I've never seen anybody look that relaxed. And so I think she's pretty excited about seeing her family and her husband. And I'll share with you all what I kept telling her, just stay in your heart. Just keep your attention in your heart, because that's your kingdom. That's where everything is, and just stay there, and your friends will come where you are. And when I used to tell her that, she'd nod her head. But that last day, she didn't respond to me, so I don't know where she was, but I don't think she was here. But she was amazing, and I want to thank all of y'all for being so wonderful to her. Some of y'all have been friends for years, and some of you were caretakers and activities girls. You all just have been wonderful to her, and I really thank you, and I'm glad you're here today.
And I would love to hear stories from others who knew her more than I did.
Yeah, some of y'all got some stories
I'll
now.
tell a story. I'm gonna do it from here because
You don't want to be on.
I don't want to be on the stage.
Okay.
For the people who don't know me, I do activities in our Prairie View neighborhoods back there. I met Dr. Oaks when she was 103, and I have never met a woman at her age with that much energy. There were days where she'd wear me out, and they call me Energizer Bunny around here. So I was going to tell the gambling story. We have a huge party called Touchmark Casino Night. I think she just had a bad fall, or she was kind of groggy, and so I was really excited to see her out coming to party with us. And so I sat down and I said, have you ever played craps before? And she goes, honey, I've never gambled before in my life. So we were playing together, and she just had a huge smile on her face the entire night. And I remember one comment specifically, because I leaned over and I said, are you having fun? She's like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but at least I'm winning. She just had such a bubbly personality. I mean, huge smile that brightened every room she walked in. And you can tell that woman was just probably the most intelligent person in whatever room she was in. So she will be very dearly missed, at least for me.
I agree. I was going to read this Viking poem that I found because I thought it was so pertinent. It says, lo there do I see my father, lo there do I see my mother, my sisters and my brothers, lo there do I see the line of my people, back to the beginning, lo do they call to me. They bid me to take my place among them, where we may live forever. So I just thought that was so appropriate for her, just so fitting for her. So who else wants to tell a story? Robin, Betty,
I'll tell a little something.
Joanne? All
Okay.
right, let me bring you
No,
the.
I'll talk loud.
Okay.
I taught school in Oklahoma City for many, many years, and about one of the first couple of years that I taught in a school called Willard, and it was down in what's called Mulligan Flats. Had an awful lot of poor kids with lots of different kinds of problems, and our principal came in one day, had a meeting, teachers meeting, and said that the school board had hired 3 psychologists, and one of them was coming to work with the teachers in our building as working with some of these kids with huge problems. we had everything all set up, and the principal said, Robin, would you go out and show her where your room is? I'm teaching kindergarten. So I went outside, and here this beautiful Jaguar drives up, convertible Jaguar, and out hops this lady in a short leather skirt. And that was Dr. Ellen Oaks. And that's pretty much how I remember her, rather than, at this age. I always think of her in her little short leather skirt. And
Yeah.
driving that really cool car.
From what we learned about her here, that sounds so much like her, doesn't it?
Yeah, I got a story on her for dressing that way. When I was a teenager, I took her shopping, and she always wore black, and it was the go-go years, so I took her shopping. I said, Mom, you need to wear different clothes. So I got her in a go-go outfit, but she would not leave the dressing room. I could hear her giggling in there, and she bought the outfit, wouldn't let me see her in it. And finally, one day, she wore it, and then after that, she took off and just started dressing like that.
Well, I'd like to say in honor of her that today we're all Vikings.
Yeah, and that's part of what, Betty's gonna share something.
Yeah, we don't want to end this.
Do you need the mic?
Need the light?
Mic, do you need the
Oh,
microphone?
the mic, probably. Maybe. I need to read the crowd first. Where is it?
Here.
Will it reach?
Oh, it's not
Yeah.
on cord. It's cordless.
Is it on?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
You just hold it up.
Hold it up close to your
Okay.
mouth.
This may take a while, because Ellen was 105 and I'm 91. Knew her for about, I don't know.
I've known you since grade school.
Yeah, your mother wanted, yeah. Your mother thought that you were in a bassinet when she met me, but that's not true. You were
Okay.
in grade school. I met Ellen, I worked for, I'm a dental hygienist. And I worked for Dr. Bill Hopkins. And Ellen was a patient of his, and I was his hygienist, so I cleaned her teeth. And so this woman came in that was dressed. I didn't see the Jaguar at that time, but I don't think she had it, but she had the clothes. She had the mini dresses were coming in too. Mini skirts, and she had the boots on, and a little space between her boots and her skirt, and she looked pretty spiffy. And I'm going to share with you something I've never said before here. I was having a very difficult time myself with my, living life, and it was very painful. I had a problem with a lot of my people in my family, in my life. They would die, and they would, in my way of thinking, they would go away, and at some level, I thought it was my fault. So it kept getting in my way, and I found out that Ellen had just had her PhD in psychology, and I thought, well, she might do. So I didn't really know her that well. So she was working at the Health Science Center, and so was I. And her office was just down the block from me, and it was very convenient. So we worked it out that I would go. She didn't have a real office. She wasn't that far with her graduation and everything. And she just had a little desk and a chair, one for her and one for me. And I walked in, introduced myself as the hygienist, and how can I help you? And I tried to tell her, and okay. And finally I said, do you think maybe you can help me? And she said, well, I think so. Yeah. And I said, well, how long do you think this is going to take? And she looked at me and said, probably as long as it needs to. And I said, okay, well, I'll go see you if you don't die and go away. And she looked at me and she said, I thought, here comes the big lie. No, she said, I'll do my very best to stay alive. I said, okay. So then we launched off on a world experience for me, and a lady who, I kind of thought of her when he was talking about somebody throwing away those bones, and she saw them and said, oh, I think there's something here that we can either save or use. And I kind of felt like those bones, today when he's talking about that, when I saw her, that she saw something in me that was worth her time, because
Aw.
by the time it was through my therapy, she stuck with me so that I was able to now have a very wonderful life. And that is thanks to Ellen. But through my, I don't know, when you go to someone that long, they sort of become your friend and what have you, and get used to seeing them. And so she went to Germany and back, and a lot of things happened. And then I think it was on her, she was living back in the States, and I think it was on her 102nd birthday. I told her, I said, Ellen, I'm going to release you from that promise. If that's what you're waiting on, honey, you can go anytime you want to. So she just looked at me and smiled like she always did. And anyway, she's was such a special lady, and there's so many things that I know that she wouldn't want me to share with you, so I won't. No, but anyway, there was something about her that I don't even know how to explain it, but you wanted to go to her and be with her. And it was just wonderful to sit in her presence. And I thank you for all coming to celebrate her life.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. Now everybody knows.
Yeah. So if Esprit will come up here, we've got, Mom does, she's all inclusive. And she'd invite everybody to get in touch with their inner Viking. So we've got Viking coins for everybody. Think you can pass these out to people? This is Esprit, and she's our helper today.
I love your boots, Esprit.
You get one.
Okay.
Everybody get their Viking coin? All right, Mom would include all of you all as relatives. Did you get one? Okay, you get one. Thank you. We all thank Esprit.
Good job, Esprit.
We appreciate it. Did you want to do something?
I thought there's something you want me to read.
Oh, yeah, there's a poem right there.
Deborah had asked me to read this poem called Letter from Heaven. when tomorrow starts without me and I'm not here to see if the sun should rise and find your eyes all filled with tears for me, I wish so much you wouldn't cry the way you did today while thinking about the many things we didn't get to say. I know how much you love me, how much I love you, as much as I love you, and each time you think of me, I know you will miss me too. When tomorrow starts without me, don't think we are far apart, for every time you think of me, I'm right here in your heart.
Thank you. We announce the toast.
Okay, so now we go to refreshments.
If you don't want champagne, we do have apple cider, so we can all toast together.
There you go.
We're gonna drink a toast.
So everybody grab a glass of water, apple cider, whatever.
Some of Mom's favorite things, champagne, chocolate, we got chocolate.
And there's some cookies.
We have plant-based chocolate, regular chocolate, and sugar-free chocolate. Huh?
Yes.
Well, you can, or they'll bring it to you, whatever you. Oh, and I guess we forgot to announce, this is a angel statue that she got in remembrance of her mother, and we're donating it to Touchmark, and it's got her name plaque on it. Does everybody have one? All right, Mom. I'm wearing lipstick today, Mom. Just for you. Love you very much, and thank you all. You're wonderful people. Hear, hear. To Dr. Oates. Ooh, that's good. Cookies
And there's cookies, so if you guys
and
want
chocolate.
to come on over, grab a cookie. If you want another glass, try to party up. No, they're just different colors.
30.
Here, here. And let me
I know, it's saying, if we're in the 2 years apart.
I don't know how all the children were born. She was 18, 16 years. Every 2 years. But she said plant-based, it's not milk.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah, two of them at Vintage Gardens, and then we had the COVID. Y'all never got to see that cow.
Never saw the new house, so you gotta go.
She, when we got, she said, I can't wait for the birthday party here. Yeah, that was,
She got that flag.
yeah. She said, "Oh, goodness, yes."
She was some kind of person.
She was, they don't make them like that.
Even if you had She was just beautiful. And sweet, you know.
You did so good. I mean, I would recommend you to be a helper.
Oh, is that why it wasn't fixed? Couldn't go to work? Yeah, I was wondering if I was gonna,
She was some kind of therapist.
couldn't get it here. I was wondering if I was gonna hear from the hospital.
That girl.
She stuck with us. We had rough times. And I think she just.
We lightened up a lot. I don't know anything around here. Right. As soon as she did go, I know, they're not gonna, nobody here can, that mom, dad, and papa can't. Well, I'm gonna find a touch for, they have, what's it called? Yeah, that one, is that one? No, it's, that one, I knew what you were saying, sorry. the dishes has